Hello, 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 people. Hope,
Good
hope,
evening and happy Friday to you, all in faithful.
that's. I wasn't sure if you're going for like a Bella Lugosi there for a second, or what the deal was there.
Just the random accent. You know what? Funny story. I was messing around. This was back when I was in the military. I was going to a dining facility. It was just random weekend, nothing going on. But I just went to the dining facility to pick up a free lunch. And for whatever reason, I was like, let me entertain myself. So I go in with this really thick Russian accent, and I just it kept escalating to the point where within about 15 minutes I had everybody working at the dining facility gathered behind the food counter as I talked to them about how I was some Russian immigrant who had come to America to join the military, specifically because I was deemed too tall to join the Russian military, and going through this huge elaborate backstory that I was effectively just making up on the fly, to the point where it just eventually reached a breaking point. Somebody finally asked me a question. I had no clue what to say, and then all of a sudden I broke. I was like, I don't know. And then everybody was like, oh my god,
I don't know, man.
you hoodwinked us. The
Yeah,
second I dropped the Russian accent, everyone was like, ah,
that's funny.
oh, you
Ah,
got me.
you
Ah, you
dirty dog.
rascal.
That's funny. Yeah, I. Yeah, so if we're sitting here on Friday nights live as we typically do, we're gathered here tonight to break down the week in Nintendo news. If you never joined us before, this is kind of just a piece of the weekly Nintendo podcast
Ooh.
that we do. All in a Nintendo podcast that comes out on Saturdays. Well, on Friday nights, we do the first segments of our show here live. Um, Basically what we do is we just we talk about what we've been playing. We do like our Patreon shout outs and we break down the weekend Nintendo news. But
Yeah.
when the full podcast goes live tomorrow on podcast services around the globe, you will hear a top 5 that we produce every week. You will hear a indie showcase spotlighting an independent game on the Switch eShop, which we produce every week, and there'll be a kind of revolving main segment. So this week we have our friend Matt Murray joining us to talk about Miiverse, and it's going to be kind of a Wii U themed episode this week.
Oh
So
yeah.
it should be fun. Should
I'm
be
really
fun.
excited for tonight. There's some bonkers stuff to talk about this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, super, super excited. Bonkers stuff within my own personal life as well. I posted something to my personal Twitter, which I didn't go into detail about at the time, but I figured I do owe a little bit of an explanation given the gravity of the situation.
Okay. Well, yeah. If we people have had enough time
Oof.
to file in, so what do you say we get
Mm.
into it? Coffee.
I'm good. I've got
Coffee's
this
good.
new coffee. I've got this new coffee. You know, the coffee maker that I got does K cups, but it also has a setting for ground coffee that you can use for singles.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've used the ground coffee setting with my new ground coffee that I just recently got, and I dig this. This is nice new coffee.
You know what? Somebody actually asked, and maybe we'll just leave this in here for the VOD. Somebody had asked in the last $2 Hero Cast, they were like, how does Eric like his coffee? And they, or what it was is they asked how I liked my coffee, and they were like, I'd love to hear Eric chime in on this too. And I'm like, well, this is the $2 Hero Cast, so you're not gonna hear Eric chime in on it. But maybe here, maybe now, Eric can chime in on it.
You know what? That's a really weird question, because just this week specifically, I was specifically looking for, I was looking to broaden my horizons a little bit. I did some grocery shopping and I bought some hazelnut coffee creamer just to see how that worked. I actually spoke with somebody. I actually struck up a conversation with a random stranger at the Walmart who was looking to coffee creamer themselves, and I asked a couple recommendations for them, which wound up being also kind of hilarious because it turned out the person was worked there. They were just there on their day off. And then I felt super bad. I was like, hey, you got even people bugging you on your day off. She was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But historically, like, I'm not really one for bitter tasting stuff, which of course makes the fact that I like coffee a massive paradox. So to offset the paradox, I just like functionally sugar with a side of coffee. I do put way too much sugar in my coffee, and again, I'm looking to diversify a little bit. at work, they keep us caffeinated with, they've got the special organic dark brew that they get. But I don't know. I really like the donut shop stuff. I like the breakfast blend stuff. There's a couple specialty, if it's kind of foofy, admittedly, I kind of like it. I don't like my
Yeah.
coffee too hard because, again, don't like bitter stuff. If it's a sweeter version of coffee, I do tend to gravitate towards stuff like that. But if it is just kind of straight traditional coffee, mostly what I do is I put like, you know, 3 cups of sugar in there to start.
Holy cow.
That's
funny.
obviously an exaggeration, but I do like my coffee very sweet.
That's what I thought, and that's what I said. I was like, well, Eric's obviously not here. However, light and sweet. So that's basically what I said. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't spreading false information there.
Yeah, the
Well, there you
the only hard coffee that I've ever really liked, and this is actually kind of a funny story too. So I was in Afghanistan on my first deployment, and I was working with the Jordanian army
Mm-hmm.
from the country of Jordan. And I did a few things for them. They did some humanitarian missions over in Afghanistan, and I worked directly with their public affairs and with their, with the units that they had over in Afghanistan. And in appreciation for the work that I had done on behalf of the Jordanian army, they gave me a couple things. They gave me this an amphora, which I learned is a little kind of like genie shaped bottle with a wide bottom.
Okay.
They gave me an amphora of holy water from the site of the baptism of Jesus Christ on the Jordan River. And they also gave me a bag of Jordanian coffee. And they made me some before they gave me this bag, but they made me some Jordanian coffee. And the best way I can describe Jordanian coffee is it is like tar and paint thinner.
Okay.
It is just vile, but I love it.
Really?
It's just one of those things where, oh, I'll take another. Yep, keep it coming.
All right.
It's just one of those things. So that was one of the reasons they gave me the Jordanian coffee. But they gave me the coffee, and then they gave me the amphora of holy water. And I just looked at these two, and I was like, I can't think of two more dissimilar liquids on the face of the planet. And of course, the very next thought I had was maybe the most blasphemous thing that's ever entered into my mind. I was like, can I use the water to make the coffee?
Right. The holy water and the unholy water. That's funny. I dig it. All right. Well, there you go. Whoever it
Enough
was.
talking about coffee.
I'm about to say whoever it was that asked that question. I don't even remember who it was. Somebody did though. So, all right. Well, let's record a podcast, shall we?
Yes. Now that we've already, entertained our audience quite a bit. A wonderful little extra for you guys that actually show up here to listen to us Friday nights at 8 p.m.
That's right. All right, let's play this intro. We'll see you on the other side, folks. That's right, everybody. We are here and happy as always to be bringing you another episode of All In, a Nintendo podcast, the weekly Nintendo variety show where each and every week no shell is left unturned and no point is left unearned. Happy to be here with you tonight live on youtube.com/allinpodcast, where if you didn't know, every single week on Friday nights, we record the first segments of our show live here in front of a live studio audience at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So come hang out with us and get a little bit of a exclusive. If you go and watch the VOD, if you're catching this on the podcast, we usually do a little bit of like pre-show banter that is worth going back and looking at the VOD for. So,
yeah.
But yeah,
had a really interesting little Afghanistan army story before we started recording the podcast. Definitely worth checking out. Make sure you do that. We love to entertain you guys as much as possible across as many different forms of media as possible. So
yeah, so come and hang out sometimes on Friday nights, won't you? We love and appreciate. Shout out to everybody who is watching us live right now. Thank you all very much for your love and support. But that is only the beginning of the shout outs, Eric. You know what we have to shout out, of course.
Of course, the guys who got me my new chair, Seth.
That's actually true. Patreon bought Eric a chair.
Yeah. So, as part of your Patreon subscription, we try to put as much of the money you guys give us toward making the show better, toward equipment and different things. And some of you might immediately be wondering, is like, well, how is a chair making the podcast better? Seth, you can vouch for this. The new chair will improve the quality of the podcast, won't it?
Nobody knows this better than me. Nobody on planet Earth knows this better than me. Eric was sitting in this old busted chair, and has been since we started recording the show. I think you just like got it for free or something like that from a friend who was moving or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, and it's just this old, like, it would creak and pop and stuff like that, and just like, it's one of those things where it's like, dude, you gotta get a new chair. It's killing me. Like I've spent so much time just editing out chair noises, and Eric's like, I know I'm going to, and then you know how it is. Like, you're an adult, days become weeks, weeks become months, and here we are. Well, finally, Eric's got a chair, and Patreon paid for it. So how cool is that, man? How cool is that?
It's my chair, but genuinely, I bought it for Seth.
It was a gift
really
to me.
Cool chair, though. Functionally, yes.
Well,
it was a legitimate way for us to make the quality of the podcast better. So that is the first step in our Patreon journey. One of the many things that your funds are going to help us continue to do things here and there to continue to improve the quality of everything that we give you guys.
That's right. So thank you all very much. And of course, our Golden Banana Bunch and our Triforce tier patrons do get shouted out here at the beginning of the podcast. So let's do that. Let's thank the people that bought Eric a new chair.
Yes.
Starting with our Golden Banana Bunch, we want to thank Dan Caparillo of the Retro Logic podcast, Rob Yapel, Third Strongest Mold, the third strongest co-host of the Retro Logic podcast, Shano Baggins Ashton, Tim A, aka Neo Prime 33, aka Nintendo Dad number 4, Matt Shy Guy City Murray, who you will hear later in the episode, as a matter of fact. Shy Guy, both of them fearless members of the Shy Guy Mod Squad. Drew Agnew, the handsome host of the House of Mario podcast, and Phelan Ward, the host of the Damage Counter Pokemon Trading Card Game podcast. Thank you very, very much to our Golden Banana Bunch. But moving into our Triforce tier supporters, we have got Josh Vaughn, longtime friend and supporter and godfather of Tingle Love Tuesday. We have got John Datfast Cummins, also of the Retro Logic podcast, as well as host of On Topic Retro, the Globe-Trottin' Jet Settin' Sparky, the man behind the Nintendo Hub on YouTube, Adam Caparello, Octorock 1982, who just launched a brand new YouTube channel and is also the host of the Retro Groove podcast, so check that out. And of course, the legend himself,
Uncle Randy.
Uncle Randy. We love you, Uncle Randy. Thank you very much for your continued love and support. The legend, man. And, Patreon is the legend lives on. And patreon.com/allinpodcast is the place to be for shout outs like that, for a ton of exclusive content, early access to video content, voting rights on things like episodes of Keep Nintendo Weird and Behind Enemy Lines. By the way, a new episode of Keep Nintendo Weird went live, and patrons did get early access to it. Barry Carenza from Premium Edition Games and I sat down and we talked about Radiant Historia. And it was a great episode of Keep Nintendo Weird, and a lot of people have enjoyed that so far. So patrons do get early access to that and a ton more over there on patreon.com/allinpodcast.
Shout out to Barry. They got a couple games that just went live over at Premium Edition. One that I've been waiting for a long time. They just added pre-orders at premiumeditiongames.com for They Bleed Pixels, and for Raji, an Ancient Epic Enhanced Edition, which I could not pre-order fast enough. Seth and I are pretty big fans of Raji. It was released in that phenomenal Indie World Showcase that came out a couple of years ago. We covered it in our Indie Showcase a week later. Really interesting India-based 3D action adventure, a la something like the classic God of War games and Devil May Cry. So if you're interested in that pre-order, that physical pre-order is now available live at premiumeditiongames.com. I've already got my copy. Again, They Bleed Pixels, also available. Shout out, guys.
Yeah. Shout outs to Barry. And again, that episode of Keep Nintendo Weird is up. We also have to shout out an anonymous 5-star review that we got on Spotify. So big thanks to whoever it was that left that review. Of course, you can't leave your name or drop words over there, unfortunately, but we do appreciate the love and support. That is a
Very
super free and easy way to support the show. Drop us a 5-star review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, and Audible. You can even leave us written reviews that I will shout out here at the beginning of the episode if you do so.
True story.
True story. So we do very, very greatly appreciate that. Helps get our show in front of the people who need to hear it. But sir, what has been going on in your world this week?
Okay, so I'm not going to dwell on this. However, I did have a very interesting moment in my life this past week, and it involved my life very nearly coming to an abrupt end. So I'm not going to get, macabre or make it a downer, but I did have a legit near-death experience this week. I was doing some grocery shopping, and I was driving back to my office, my day job where I worked. I was, I'm not really that good with directions, so I wasn't completely sure which road to turn down. My mother is a walking GPS, and that ability skipped my generation. I am terrible with directions. If you need me as a navigator, we are already lost. So I was trying to remember what road to turn back down, and I reached the road that I thought it was, and I began to turn into the turn lane. And then I second guessed myself, and I was like, you know what? There's a main road up here somewhere that I know is a road that I can turn down to get back to where I need to be. So instead, I veered back into the straight lane at the light. And right as I veered back into the lane, this massive SUV veers into oncoming traffic, drives, no joke, about 100 miles an hour directly through the oncoming turn lane that I just finished swerving back out of. And then about 100 yards down the road goes back into, the regular southbound traffic that he was supposed to be in. So this massive SUV just swerves into the oncoming turn lane that I was just in, going again about triple-digit miles an hour. And I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. That driver, the other drivers certainly wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. I was very near. If I had been even slightly more confident in my directional capabilities, I would have been in a 100-mile-an-hour head-on collision, which the odds of walking away from those do not favor the driver. So it was just a really bizarre moment. It was a really kind of, life flashing before your eyes kind of thing once it happened, because the guy was probably an inch from my side of the car as he veered into the oncoming traffic. So it was really, really weird for me for about a day. And it is one of those things that does make you realize that all of this can end legit in an instant. So it was a really weird situation for me. I am very thankful to be here this Friday evening talking Nintendo with all of you amazing folks. I am doubly thankful this week that I'm here to be able to join you guys, and that we can do an episode of All In this week. So that was just something I posted on my Twitter, and I was very vague about it. So I felt like at the very least I did owe an explanation in regards to how serious I said the situation was, and it was admittedly very serious, or at least it was very nearly an
Right.
incredibly serious situation. So that happened.
So that happened. Glad you didn't
So
die.
you know what? I'm also happy about that,
You know what?
Seth.
I'm glad too. He came away from that experience. He's like, I gotta go buy a chair. I don't have a minute to lose.
Exactly. Yeah. It was one of those things where I did kind of start to that whole I need to make my life mean more. I
Right.
need to make every day count more.
Right.
That feeling did really well up inside me. Not saying that, I'd forgotten that or whatever, but I did have like a very serious, very intense kind of, couple of days there where I was very cognizant of the fact that I was alive.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so
Changes your
again,
whole
very
appreciation model. Yeah.
it does. So once again, very happy to be continuing to be able to join you here Friday nights at 8 p.m. at youtube.com/All In Podcast for All In, a Nintendo podcast. But in much lighter news, I have played a few games over the course of the past week. It's been an absolutely insane month for us, Seth.
Yeah, it has.
We got we got Mario plus Rabbids, Sparks of Hope, directly from that into Bayonetta 3, directly from that into Sonic Frontiers, directly from that into a game that just came out a few hours ago as we are live here on youtube.com/All In Podcast. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that both Seth and I have begun playing. He was a midnight releaser. I unfortunately wasn't able to do that. I had to wait until this morning to be able to pick up my copy. And I am doing, of course, what I do every generation, and that is finding my nearest and dearest and closest friend and basically starting the game 3 times, trading off my starters to that friend, and then starting my real playthrough of the game and having that friend trade back the starters. That way I don't actually have to choose, because even though they're just code in a video game, I feel bad leaving any one of them behind.
Cheating the system, getting around the emotions, getting around all that, just cheating the system over there.
I am not using any techniques or any abilities that are artificially created or artificially injected into the game. Everything I do is well within the intended performance and mechanics of the game.
It is. You know what's really funny? You were talking about I don't have the heart in me to leave any of them behind. It was really funny, and I have a clip of this. I need to post it to Twitter. I haven't yet. And this is just indicative of my entire experience of the game thus far. But I went to choose my starter, and when the game opens up, they kind of do. I actually like this move where they kind of give you a second to get to know the starters a little bit.
It's a bit of an extended sequence in this game.
Yeah, and they did a similar thing in Arceus, where you just have just a little bit of extra time to kind of get to see their personalities a little bit. And this one, it's literally just they're gonna walk with you down the road, which is fine. But what was really funny was I came into this game knowing that for me it was between Fuecoco and Quaxley, and people who've been listening to the show for a little while know that I've been all about Fuecoco this entire time. And then my wife, who is more than likely going to make this her first Pokemon game, she's like, I'm probably going to go Fuecoco. And she's like, and honestly, I don't understand why you're going Fuecoco anyway. And I'm like, why is that? And she's like, it's a crocodile. And I was like, yeah, but it's like more of a dinosaur, like a Dig Dug sort of thing. She's like, no, it's called it's called the Fire Croc Pokemon. It's probably going to evolve into like a crocodile. And for those who don't know, people who've listened to All In Side Quest will probably know I hate crocodiles. And for some reason, this never occurred to me. And I was like, well, this is a deal breaker. So I went into Quaxley and I chose
no
Quaxley.
Crocodile, no for alligator, none of that?
Nope. Hate crocodiles. Hate them. I said this on Side Quest. I'll say it again. People act like it's okay. Dinosaurs walk among us freely on planet Earth, and people act like it's okay. It's not okay. So anyway, no crocodile for me. So I went with Quaxley. However, coming into it knowing that I was only going to go between Quaxley or Fuecoco, it was really funny that my Sprigatito in that moment glitched out. And what ended up happening was it got stuck on the geometry or whatever, on like the fence, like in that starting area with your house. So I have a clip of Sprigatito just getting like stuck on the fence, and Sprigatito was unable to actually follow me to the house you're supposed to go to. So Sprigatito wound up just like kind of manifesting at that house. It was really really funny, and just kind of like, not only was it Providence that Sprigatito couldn't have been in my party by that logic, but also that it was just evocative of, how bad the performance of the game is. So
Yeah. So I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you are at least moderately aware of what goes on within the world of Nintendo already. And more than likely, you've already heard some of the rumblings about the technical performance of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And even in just the early stages of the game, even in just the first impressions that we have of the game, both Seth and I have encountered multiple, frankly, uh there's just bad. It is kind
it's
of just bad.
bad.
In
It's
in the
horrible.
opening cutscene, I actually ran into a shot where, when it was transitioning from one shot to another, all the characters in the previous shot just T-posed for like the last 5-10 frames of the shot. Like, I hadn't even taken control of the character yet, and I already had noticed like a massive technical thing. And when you get to the first town, we have stuff like this in some Switch games like Dragon Quest, or very notably in Monster Hunter Rise, where stuff off in the distance is, going at like 10 frames a second or something. And okay, sure, if it's 200 yards away, if you can still notice it, you know what? Okay, whatever. It's the Nintendo Switch. The rest of the game still runs buttery smooth. I'm not that worried about it. In this game, it's like 10 yards away.
It's
And
rough, dude.
this was, I was really worried about this coming into the game, specifically because of something that we brought up during one of the big overview trailers, and the fact that this was exactly the case in the American version of the overview trailer during an event where you are surrounded by Sunflora. And I was like, why in the world are these Sunflora running at like 5 frames a second? And it was fixed. It was running much more optimally in the Japanese version, but that still put up a big red flag for me. And sure enough, if technical performance, if consistent technical performance issues are, if you think that's going to be a big issue for you and a big uh, speed bump on your enjoyment of this game, then you may want to listen to what we have to say during our full review.
Yeah, we'll be doing a full review soon on the show when we have a chance to really sink our teeth into it. I'm only like 5 hours into the game so far.
Mm-hmm.
And like the thing is the game is fun. Like, I'm having fun with the game. But the performance is so bad. I was telling you this when I went to the midnight launch for it. I was
Yeah.
actually listening to the latest episode of NVC, IGN's Nintendo podcast, Nintendo Voice Chat, and
Yep.
friend of the show, Reb Valentine, was on there, who reviewed the game for IGN, and
Yeah.
she was like, game is super fun. In many ways, it's like my favorite Pokemon generation. However, this is the worst performance I've ever seen in a first-party Nintendo game. It's hard to disagree with that. The performance is terrible. It's inexcusable. I don't like and I came into Pokemon Legends Arceus kind of being like, whatever, and this doesn't look too great, but whatever, not that big of a deal. It kind of faded away after an hour or so. Well, this is deeper than that. This isn't just it's ugly. This isn't just some bad textures. This is horrible frame rate throughout. This is things like you're talking about, T-posing and glitching and, like little tiny things like this. They should be ashamed of themselves for launching it in this state. It's crazy. And they're doing it not because the Switch is not powerful enough. That's what really annoys me about this whole situation is the discourse online is, oh, well, you have to understand the Switch is underpowered. I'm sorry. I played Xenoblade Chronicles 3 this year. I played Monster Hunter Rise this year, Dragon Quest, Dying Light, The Witcher. Like, I've played these games that are bigger and prettier than Pokemon. It makes no sense. It's a Game Freak issue. It's not a Nintendo Switch issue. It's them saying, you know what? We can get away with this. We can be complacent. We can release this broken game, and it's still going to sell 15, 20 million copies. You're still going to buy it. Enjoy it.
And this was something that, even going back to the first big trailer that we got of this last year, we had just gotten the Gen 4 remakes. We were just about to get another massive adventure in the form of Pokemon Legends Arceus at the beginning of the year. And here we are, 3 huge Pokemon adventures within the span of just a single year. Both you and I were really afraid, is that too much? Do they need to spread it out? And even when we got that first overview trailer, we're like, we really feel like this needs to be pushed back. We feel like January is way too it's way too optimistic of a launch window based on what we were seeing. But as we saw more, we were like, okay, whatever. That's the magic of editing. But turns out all of our initial concerns turned out to be completely warranted. And again, this is just based off initial impressions. But yeah, even just based off of initial impressions, it's that strong of an initial impression. I have no doubt that I'm going to have a lot of fun with the game. But even just with my short time with it, I've already run into several things that I just had to sit back and laugh at. So yeah,
I just can't believe it.
Maybe they should have pushed it back a little bit. But again, we don't want to sit here and dwell on it too much. We still have much more of the game to play. So, but I'll just say this at the end. This was something that really, this was something that just popped into my head, and it just felt so true. This feels like it's going to be Nintendo's Skyrim.
Well, it's
a big open world game that's going to be really, really good, but filled to the brim with bugs.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've said on this show before that Pokemon is Nintendo's Call of Duty. The difference is that Call of Duty, they have multiple teams, kind of trading out, and they actually have 2-3 years of development time on these. Pokemon doesn't have that. Pokemon is working on these games in a very short amount of time. It's kind of a miracle that they can pull anything like this off, but it's because of everything else. It's because this needs to come out so that the anime is ready to go, so that the trading cards are ready to go. It's all just greasing these wheels, and it's not okay. We have to, at a certain point, something's got to give, but it's never going to change because we're just going to keep buying it. We're trapped. And we're just in this abusive relationship with Pokemon. And what's unfortunate is the game's fun. It's good. I'm enjoying it. It just needs to perform better. I'm really hoping for a patch. Anyway, stay tuned for our review soon on the show.
Stay tuned for our full review on the show. But yeah, well, let's get away from Pokemon. It's the biggest release of the week, obviously. It's one of the biggest releases of the year. We had to stop and talk about it for at least a couple seconds, but we will have much, much more to say about the full version of the game in the following weeks. Speaking of, we also played quite a bit of Sonic Frontiers. Both Seth and I have rolled credits on the game. Both spent quite a bit of time. Turns out this was a slightly larger Sonic game than many of the past iterations for the Blue Blur. And I'm really excited to talk about this one.
Me too.
I really am.
Me too.
I really am. We're going to be doing our review next week. But this was definitely a big departure from the core Sonic formula. The big story with every 3D Sonic game is, could this potentially, finally, blessedly be a turning point for the 3D iteration of the Blue Blur? And I'm really excited to talk about it from that angle.
Yep, definitely look forward to our review next week on the show. We're going to really sit and chat about Sonic Frontiers and break it all down, because there's a lot to break down. There's a lot to talk about with this game, and certainly one of the most interesting games of the year, and I'm really looking forward to that. Kind of related to Sonic, there's a little bit of a funny story we wanted to kind of briefly mention. and we need to be careful.
Yeah, you can count this as a prologue to the news,
sure.
Basically.
Yeah, we do need to be careful, because this is just a report. This is not confirmed. We do know that one of the fathers of Sonic, the legend Yuji Naka, has been arrested this past week. And the report is that he was arrested for stock-related inside sharing with stocks, essentially.
Well, there have been arrests made, and the report is that Yuji Naka is among those who have
Right.
been arrested in regards to insider trading in reference to an upcoming Dragon Quest game announcement.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're waiting for official confirmation on this, but I didn't know if Yuji Naka's career could get any more muddled following both the issues with Balan Wonderworld and the subsequent Twitter wildfire that came from the fallout of that. But yeah, it turns out Yuji Naka unintentionally finds ways to stay in the spotlight. And this is just another weird story involving an admittedly legendary member of the industry. And as more stuff comes out about it, we will, I'm going to make some popcorn and I'm going to watch.
It was funny because, and what we should say too, for those who don't know what inside trading is, inside stock sharing, essentially, because he was an employee of Square Enix, for many years, and that's where he made Balan Wonderworld and stuff. And the allegation, the report here, again, we don't know if this is what happened or not, but the report is that he essentially bumped up his shares, bought a whole bunch of stock in this company that was developing this Dragon Quest mobile game that he was privy to, knowing that his stock would increase exponentially after the announcement of said game. So
Yeah.
that's illegal. So that's the kind of accusation here. So again, nothing confirmed, but it was just kind of a weird, funny little story from Sonic's dad.
Yeah, insider trading is such a bizarre thing because companies, following big positive announcements, company stock tends to increase pretty substantially. Like Nintendo stock increased by by a ton when they announced the Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
But it is illegal to buy up a bunch of stock in a company with insider knowledge that such an announcement is imminent. It's really
You
weird
can't be
and
Biff with
bizarre.
the sports almanac, dude. Like that's not how this
Basically,
works.
yeah.
you know.
That's
So
such a great movie.
yeah, but that's what it is, right? That's exactly what this is when people do this. So that's why it's illegal. You're manipulating the stock. So it is what it is. We'll see. It just we had to mention it. It was a weird little story that came out this week.
Hashtag Yuji Naka stonks.
Yeah. Well, what else has been going on in your world, man? Any other games or anything?
I'm just going to touch on this interesting game that you put on my radar because, well, you put it on my radar after our friend Jordan the Red Panda initially put it on our radar.
Mm-hmm.
Eric is a big fan of low poly action platformers. That's a happy place for me. Games like Kirby 64, games like Tori 3D, and games like this little gem that came out last week for just $5, I might add, called Lunistis. It basically feels like, speaking of Sonic, it feels like a mix between Sonic and Tori 3D, essentially. There's a lot of elements from both, and classic Sonic, I mean. There's a lot of elements from both that are in here, and it's a really straightforward game. It's not going to take you too long to beat, but it's just one of those things where it's given me a really, really strong, positive nostalgia serotonin trip.
It's great for $5. It's got a free demo. We mentioned
Yep.
it briefly last week on the show, but it does have a free demo to check out. Actually, Sparky over on his YouTube channel, The Nintendo Hub,
Yeah.
he did a video of it too. So
Yep.
shout outs to Sparky. But yeah, it's a great little game, man. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. So again, check that out. I don't know if the game is big enough to warrant a full indie showcase, but we may have to get a Grumpy Fox on the show to talk about
Maybe.
it.
Yeah, maybe. It's cool. Yeah, it's a cool little game. I really liked it. It just feels good. Like it's a well-made
Exactly. Yeah.
platformer.
Yeah, games don't need to be incredibly complicated. They don't need to give the player a billion different options or mechanics. Sometimes a simple, straightforward A to B game that's just well made. Sometimes that's all you need. You don't necessarily need a game to reinvent the wheel, but if you have somebody who can do something well, sometimes that's enough.
Yep. It's just good. I like
Yeah.
it a lot. Anything else?
No, between the near death experience and the massive AAA games that you and I are both trying to blaze through, Blaze, Sonic, and Sonic Rush.
There you go.
No, it's been a heck of a week for me, man. But what about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much same as you. Pokemon, Sonic. Did want a quick shout outs for Splatfest. Obviously, Splatfest happened last weekend. Team Water ended up taking it,
I wonder if
taking the
that was why
victory.
you got. I was wondering if that's why you went Quaxley.
No, no, that wasn't why I went Quaxley, but Team Water did win, so congratulations to everybody who played. It felt like everybody in the community was Team Water. Like there were so many people in Team
Well,
Water.
I mean, Team Water. It was a clean sweep for
Yeah,
Team Water. There were
yeah,
four different categories, and Team Water took all four of them.
yeah. So Team Water won handily. I did try to put in the work for Team Grass. I streamed it even. I was playing it here on the YouTube channel, and put in a little bit of work for Team Grass, but sadly Team Water took it. So
I let you down, Team Fire. I'm sorry. I let you down.
grr. Grr, that's all right. That's all right. Congrats to the Team Water folks, and we'll be talking about Splatoon pretty shortly because we do know some stuff coming for Splatoon soon.
Hmm.
Um, Last thing I'll shout out is this game Goodbye World, which we just came out on the Switch this week, and we did get a review code from the publisher. So big thanks to the publisher for providing us access to that. And I made a video for that here on the YouTube channel as well, just kind of playing the first like half hour or so of the game. It's a very like narrative heavy game. Reminds me a lot of what comes after. In a lot of
That's what you
ways.
told me. Yeah.
Yeah, just this sort of, it's pixel art and it's really pretty pixel art.
Hmm.
But it's this kind of like visual novel vibe. Like there's not a whole lot of actual gameplay to it. You're essentially it's this story of these two independent game developers living in Japan, working on a game together and kind of going through the struggles of game development, dealing with mental health issues and things like that. Probably a content warning, you know, given the title and given like some of the theming, I could imagine this going places similarly to what comes after did. Um, so it kind of reminds me of that in that regard, but really you're just getting these kind of little vignettes that have no gameplay, but then between them there's this kind of game that one of the characters plays called, I think it's just called like Boxes or something like that. And it's like a fun little kind of Game Boy puzzle platformer. It's fine. Like it's kind of like Box Boy meets Kirby or something. And it's
Okay.
just this little it's a cute little thing, but really it's just kind of like interstitials between the vignettes which are completely non-interactive. So, it's a fairly gameplay light experience, but it seems cool. Like if you're into stuff like this, I can tell that this would be a really impactful game for a lot of people. Like it's kind of, again, it reminds me a lot of what comes after, where when we played it, we're like, cool, I'm glad I played this. It was a great little story, had some great themes, but it's not necessarily, gameplay heavy enough to where we could do a full like indie showcase on it. So
What Goodbye World kind of reminds me of is being a creative writing minor. Anybody who goes through any level of higher education trying to learn more about the craft of creative writing, you'll probably wind up in a class that requires you to come up with a myriad of different essays and topics and stuff like that. And eventually, it happens to everybody. And we all think we're the only ones. We all think we're so clever. But eventually, every creative writing student comes up with the idea of, man, it's so hard to think of an idea for this essay. You know what? Writing the essay is
right.
going to be the topic about writing my essay. And we all think we're so clever.
It
It,
does
it,
feel
hap-
pretty
it
autobiographical.
yeah,
Yeah.
it happened to me too. But those are kind of the vibes that I got from the entire thing. Was they couldn't really think of, and don't get me wrong, the narrative about trying to create a video game, the whole idea of creating an indie game was interesting enough that they made a multiple documentaries about it. Obviously, the one about Super Meat Boy and Phil Fish and Fez is incredibly popular. Indie Game the movie. So it is an interesting story. I'm just saying those are the kind of vibes that it gave me. Is the same time when I was in college and I wrote an essay about writing essays.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's worth checking out. Again, it was shown actually during Indie World.
Yep.
And we got a brief look at it. We saw a little bit more in the summer, but we never knew a date, and it was interestingly even during Indie World didn't get a date. And
Yep.
now that the game's out, I can say like we got a press release for it and it said the date in the press release, but I didn't know if I could share that or not. But sure enough, it came out on that date, and here we are playing it. It's out there. You can go play it. So I don't know what happened there. But in any case, if this sounds like the kind of thing you could get into, probably going to be kind of short. Probably, I wouldn't expect it to be any more than a few hours. But yeah, take a look. And again, there is a video on the YouTube channel if you want to kind of get a sense for what the game is like. So definitely check that out. But sir, we've got some news stories to cover this week, my friend. There's some interesting stuff going on.
Yes, even outside of, the whole Yuji Naka insider trading, reportedly, allegedly weird stuff going on over there in Japan. We've got some interesting stuff going stateside as well with a potential awards sweep. We will see, but let's talk about it.
Hey, listen!
I mean, you can't get away from it. Far and away the biggest news story in the world of not just Nintendo, but in the world of video games from this past week was the release of the nominations for this year's Game Awards. The basically understood to be industry standard within the world of video games. And I was actually kind of surprised by a couple of the Nintendo representatives. There was a couple that I was specifically looking for, and they actually appeared where I was hoping they would appear, Seth.
Yeah, I think the big one, and by the way, one thing that I should say, we're going to focus on the Nintendo nominees here for our show, but Eric and I did do an entire episode of All In Side Quest, which is our Patreon exclusive show for our Golden Banana and Triforce tier patrons. So where we went through the entire nominations except for the Nintendo stuff. So if you want to hear kind of deeper thoughts on these nominees, All In Side Quest is the place to get it. So I should say that. But it is really cool here. I mean, Nintendo representation during the Game Awards is always kind of hit or miss. But to see a Nintendo publish a first-party Nintendo game nominated for Game of the Year, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, one of our favorite games of the year, it was pretty cool. I don't think it's going to win, but I think it was pretty cool to see it nominated.
I don't think it's going to win. This is something we said during SideQuest as well, but it bears repeating just because we're talking about Jeff Keighley. But Jeff Keighley is basically an Elden Ring fetishist.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if Elden Ring took every category it's nominated in, and even a few categories that it's not nominated in. So it's nominated for Game of the Year, Best Direction. It's nominated for quite a few awards, as is God of War Ragnarok, which came out just a week before the nominations came out, but they still felt comfortable nominating it in over half a dozen categories. Okay, Jeff. Okay. But, it was still nice to see a lot of the Nintendo representation. I honestly wasn't expecting to see Xenoblade there at Game of the Year. There were a couple really interesting, very notable games that have released, and I was not surprised. I was very surprised to see Xenoblade there. But even more, I mean, the fact that Stray showed up as a nominee for Game of the Year, I think really threw a lot of people off kilter. They were like, oh, that's interesting. Xenoblade Chronicles, the Stray?
Yeah.
I think that was the reaction for a lot of people. But I'm kind of stuck on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Like, you go, Monolith Soft.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to see it nominated for Game of the Year. It's nice to get it that recognition. It's nice to see that there. And indeed, I mean, like, even when you look at the best RPG nominations for best role playing game, almost all of those are Nintendo exclusives, from Xenoblade 3 again to Triangle Strategy to Pokemon Legends Arceus and Live Alive. Four and then Elden Ring. 4 of the 5 nominees are Nintendo games. So it is kind of cool.
That's gonna be incredibly telling for me when Elden Ring wins Best RPG among 4 other Nintendo exclusive games. Yeah. That's going to be very telling for me, because I basically assume it's going to happen. That being said, there is a Nintendo exclusive game, which I think is basically a shoe-in to win another category that isn't specifically just there for, to be a Nintendo representative category like Best Family Game. I really feel like Sparks of Hope should be the front runner for Best Strategy Game.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I mean, looking at some of these other nominees, I do think that it is kind of the clear winner. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn. I would think so too. I don't want to be, speak out of turn because I don't know, I haven't played these other games, but the other nominees are Dune Spice Wars, Total War Warhammer 3, Two Point Campus, and Victoria 3. So, I mean, admittedly, from my perspective, Sparks of Hope does kind of just stand way above those others.
It's yeah, it's fantastic. We reviewed it, as a matter of fact, just a couple weeks ago. Maybe you should go back and hear about how amazing it is. Very much looking forward to the DLC. We're gonna have to wait for quite a while for some of it, but very much looking forward to the DLC. But the core game is fantastic. It's still my background on my phone. A game that definitely lived up to the hype of a year and a half waiting with bated breath. Lived up to the hype. I've got to imagine it's taking that. I've got to imagine it's taking best strategy game.
Yep. So we'll see how that lands. Splatoon 3 was nominated for best multiplayer.
Yes.
Which is cool. I don't know that it's going to take it, but it was cool. Cool that it's nominated.
That's true. What were the other best multiplayer?
So it's against Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Multiverses, Overwatch 2, and TMNT Shredder's Revenge. Also cool to see that nominated.
Yeah, TMNT Shredder's Revenge was also nominated, I believe, for Best Action Game.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. As well as Sifu, Neon White, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 again, and Bayonetta 3 nominated for Best Action Game.
Speaking of, again, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, we did a review for a couple weeks ago. Bayonetta 3, we did a review last week. Definitely check that out. And, we've made it very clear that we are huge fans of TMNT Shredder's Revenge. But we have also talked quite a bit about another game. Haven't done a proper indie showcase on it. But, Seth, I do very much want to hear your thoughts about what you think is going to happen with Neon White this year at the Game Awards. Because I know you and our guest for this episode are very in tune with that game.
Yeah, I love Neon White. That is my personal game of the year. Having played, most of the game, there are a couple, like I want to make sure before the end of the year, I want to make sure I spend some real time with Cult of the Lamb, some real time with Tunic. There are a couple like stragglers, but I'm pretty confident that Neon White is going to be my personal favorite game of the year. With that being said, I look at some of these other, categories it's nominated for, things like Best Debut Indie, Best Indie, Best Action Game. It is nominated for a fair few categories. I think it's going to win at least one. I don't know what it's going to end up taking because it's the Best Indie and Best Debut Indie is almost the exact same group of nominations. So I bet it's going to take one of those, but whichever one, it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, this was something we talked about during the side quest as well. I am glad there are multiple categories to talk about indie games, but so many indie studios are just coming out the gate swinging so hard that a lot of debut indie games now are very, very impressive. It's not taking studios 2 or 3 efforts to start putting out really special games. So I'm very happy that Jeff is doing what he can to highlight as many indie games as possible, especially in the indie game situation, especially in the indie game climate where we're at, the indie game climate cannot be denied at this point. There are so many amazingly creative and talented developers that are just small teams working on passion projects and putting out just incredibly special ideas, rivaling the creativity, narrative structure, and music and audio design of a lot of the AAA stuff. So I'm glad that they're doing what they can to highlight as many indie games as possible, but I do wish that they had found a way to diversify the nominees for those two categories a little bit, because in addition to Best Indie Game, Best Debut Indie Game, we also have, a couple other categories specifically tailored for stuff like this. Best, Games for Impact is another category very similar to that.
Yeah, and I do like that category. I'm glad they do.
I do too.
Games for Impact. That's a cool category. Admittedly, I haven't played a lot of these games nominated, which is strange because normally the opposite is true. Normally, especially with all the indie games we play, and many of these are available on Switch. A Memoir Blue, I believe, is on Switch. As Dusk Falls is not. That's an Xbox exclusive. Citizen Sleeper is on Switch. Endling Extinction is Forever is on Switch.
That's actually got a physical. You've got
Yeah.
Hindsight, and
Yep.
I Was a Teenage Exocolonist is also
On
uh,
Switch. Yep.
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 I Was a
Everything but
Teenage
his Dusk
Exocolonist.
Falls.
That's a Finji game, right?
Yeah, Finji published that one.
Yeah, Finji definitely no stranger to Game Award nominations.
Yeah, they are no stranger to that. They publish some very acclaimed games. So yeah, cool to see. It makes me want to try some of these. It makes me want to check some of these out. We I kind of had a laugh at Hindsight for its very vague trailer that it showed, but it's cool to see it nominated. Always nice to see some indie representation here.
Oh yeah. Speaking of Finji, Tunic, we talked about best indies and stuff. Tunic, another game that we just got that Seth and I were like, we knew it was coming to the Switch at some point. It took a while, but we knew it was going to come to the Switch at some point. It was an incredibly acclaimed indie, Soulsborne kind of adventure title with a very cute fox at the middle of it. We knew it was coming to the Nintendo Switch. Sure enough, it did. And we can't wait to feature it ourselves. But yes, it's also nominated for a couple categories here at the Game Awards as well. Congratulations, Finji.
Yeah, Tunic's on my list. Tunic is like Pokemon is kind of like top of the docket right now, but Tunic's next, man. I'm eyeballing that and Cult of Lamb. Those are like the ones I'm like, okay, I gotta play this before the end of the year in the realm of Nintendo for sure.
I'll admit, Cult of the Lamb was another one that surprised me. That's Devolver Digital is it definitely has a type. It's got its own personality. They definitely have their own games, and Devolver Digital doesn't feel like it's a studio that puts out games with the intent of going for awards.
Right. Yeah, they do it because it's fun. Their games are just fun, and I mean I've heard and seen some amazing things about it. I haven't spent any real time with it myself. I played the demo during Steam Next Fest and really enjoyed it, but I haven't actually played the full game. So those ones are like, that's the top of my list for like indie games that I really need to play. Shout outs to our friend Lockleth here in the chat. She's vouching for Cult of the Lamb, and she's played a lot of that on her channel. Metal Lockleth over there playing Cult of the Lamb, so shout outs to Lockleth. And that she is somebody who has made me want to play Cult of the Lamb quite a bit more because she heaps praise upon it.
Nice. Hope you're feeling better, Lockleth.
Yeah. She's been sick, so hopefully she's feeling better. But so we got that. The best family category is always kind of just the Nintendo
category. Yeah. And it's no difference this year. This is where you see Kirby. This is where you see Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope's other nomination. Again, this is basically just Nintendo, the best Nintendo game without actually directly being called best Nintendo game. And I would admittedly like to see Kirby take this because that is such a special game. It really deserves recognition. They talk about how it's an honor to be nominated, but I mean, Kirby really is a special moment in a special franchise. And I do hope it gets the recognition.
I hope so too. I hope Kirby takes this. The nominees are Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, Sparks of Hope, Nintendo Switch Sports, and Splatoon 3.
All of which we've done reviews for.
Yeah, actually. Yeah. And admittedly, I would like to see Kirby and the Forgotten Land take it. I'm right there with you. But yeah. Nintendo category.
I adore the music for Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I likened it to Mario Galaxy when we did our review of the game. And you and I are already talking about the Golden Aces for us. Mm-hmm. But Kirby didn't get nominated, and admittedly that doesn't surprise me, but Kirby didn't get nominated for Best Score or Music. However, Mitsuda did.
He did. The soundtrack for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is up against Metal Hellsinger, God of War Ragnarok, Elden Ring, and A Plague Tale Requiem. And I mean, honestly, for me, it's an easy choice. It's an easy W for. I mean,
are you telling me that you think that your favorite composer of all time, that you think that they did the best soundtrack this year?
You know what? I'm willing to make that leap. I think Xenoblade Chronicles 3's soundtrack is incredible. I think that pound for pound, the amount of work, the quality and the consistency of the work, in addition to the way the music is interwoven with the narrative, like not only that, like it deserves to win this award. And Metal Hellsinger, cool game, cool idea. I respect it. It's got a lot of like involvement from like, metal artists. I think Serge Tankian is doing music for it and stuff. That's all cool. But like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a masterpiece in terms of its soundtrack. An absolute masterwork.
The off-seer flutes, man. Just
that alone,
those.
should win it the award. To say nothing of, just everything else. The hours of work from hundreds of people that, came together, the orchestral pieces. It is a phenomenal soundtrack. And to me, just the clear winner. Like, it's not even close. There's not even a close second. And I love Kirby and the Forgotten Lands music. I actually think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has a fantastic soundtrack so far.
Hey, shout out to Toby Fox.
Yeah. Oh, it is a Toby Fox soundtrack, like through and through. So, there have been some great soundtracks this year. Don't get me wrong, but they're not Xenoblade 3, man.
They're not Xenoblade 3. That would be... Xenoblade 3 is not winning Best Year. Not at the Game Awards, not at the Jeff Keighley show. But I could see Xenoblade winning Best Soundtrack. I could actually see that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it'll win. It's not going to win Game of the Year, but I do think it'll win Best Soundtrack. Yeah. And maybe Best RPG. We'll see. I mean, Elden Ring's up for it too, so that's probably going to win. But if not, maybe they'll give it to Xenoblade.
I'm sure they're going to fit in Elden Ring into Best Indie Game before the actual show.
Yeah, so. Elden Ring is Content Creator of the Year. that's what that'll be.
Kid and Krista should have been nominated for Content Creator of the Year.
I agree. I think so too. I think,
if we're not going to be nominated, they should have been.
I'm actually a little surprised they weren't. Considering their history with Jeff Keighley, and Jeff Keighley was actually just on their show, so I was a little surprised, but is what it is. We do have some Nintendo representation, of course, in Most Anticipated as well, because the big one, the big Nintendo game that everybody is hotly anticipating is Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom.
That's how it's pronounced. That's confirmed.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Which some people thought it was for some reason. I'll never understand that. But that is up for Most Anticipated, in contention with Final Fantasy XVI, Hogwarts Legacy, which is also coming to the Nintendo Switch someday, Resident Evil 4, the remake, and Starfield. So we'll see. I think it's probably between Zelda and Starfield, but...
I don't know. I feel like a couple of those nominees may also be nominated in this category next year.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see that. So that is kind of funny.
But obviously, The Legend of Zelda is in a very different situation than the Pokemon franchise right now, whereas arguably we are getting waterlogged. We have an oversaturation of Pokemon adventures to tide us over. It has been a very long time since we have had a new 3D Zelda game to play. A lot of us have been waiting with bated breath for the remakes for Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD to finally drop. And this is something that you've talked about quite a bit, Seth, how this is going to be the first year since the Nintendo Switch has come out where we didn't actually get a Zelda game. We got, obviously, Breath of the Wild as a launch title. We've gotten a couple other games since then. We got the wonderful Link's Awakening remake. We got the amazing Skyward Sword HD remake that we talked about last year. But it's been a very, very long time since a new 3D Zelda adventure has graced our console. So incredibly excited for Tears of the Kingdom, especially as a follow-up to Breath of the Wild. So I know there are some great games on the horizon. I feel like Starfield's hype is being overinflated. Because if we're being completely honest with ourselves, that showcase, when we finally got to see Starfield, I think a lot of people told themselves it looked better than it really did.
No, I don't know. That's not it. It's it's one of those like not my monkeys, not my circus. Like I don't really care about Starfield personally, so
Yeah.
far be it for me to yuck somebody else's yum. I don't know, but I do feel like people are hyped for it just because it is Bethesda. But with that being said, in 2017, Breath of the Wild did take the
One
prize
game of the year. Yeah. And
at the
this
Game
this
Awards.
brings up an interesting point that I specifically wanted to ask you about. Do we even think the award for most anticipated means anything?
No, not really. It's just something to put on the shelf. I don't think it really means much. It's such a subjective thing, you know.
It is a nice bullet point for a game if you're trying to sell copies, if you're
That's what
trying
it
to
is.
advertise, if you're trying to market it. It is a really nice bullet point. But I mean, ultimately, how does it, games always advertise, E3 best of show or PAX best of show, stuff like that. And I guess that's fundamentally what this would be.
Yeah.
Outside of that, most anticipated doesn't actually go into the quality of the game itself. It's basically just how well has the company cultivated the hype train for it.
Yeah, how much hype is there? That's really what it is. And yeah, you'll see it, during the trailers and stuff like that, and real quick actually, we did Tears of the Kingdom got rated this week. So it seems likely it's going to make that May 12th date. So it seems pretty likely that it's not going to get pushed. So that'll be cool. That's nice. It's nice that this is something, unlike some of these other entries, this is something that actually has a date to look forward to and circle on the. You can actually get anticipated about this entry. So
for the calendar year of 2023.
Yep. So we'll see. I think though, looking over some of these, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we had the best adaptation, which has a little bit of like indie representation from games that are on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. Best adaptation is essentially just the best show / movie based on, a video game, which Sonic 2, I've got to imagine, is going to win, despite the fact that there are some really impressive. I haven't watched it personally. However, I have heard nothing but superlative things about the League of Legends Arcane animated series.
Yeah, I think it's down to Arcane or Sonic, honestly. Yeah.
And you and I really like Sonic. There were some obvious issues with the Sonic 2 movie, but it was still ultimately a very fun video game movie romp that we hope gets a follow-up. Yeah. Speaking of, there's new Cuphead episodes on Netflix now for the festive season.
Oh, cool.
So that was shown off. They did a little launch thing last night. As you're listening to this live Thursday night, they did a little launch thing for Netflix, and they should be live right now on Netflix. New episodes of the Cuphead show.
Nice. The Cuphead show's cool. I like the Cuphead show. Fun little show. Fun little show. But that's pretty much it for the Nintendo representation at the Game Awards. A lot to hopefully look forward to. It's happening December 8th. I believe it kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll see. We'll see how everything goes, and obviously we will be watching, and we'll be keeping an eye on it and seeing if there's any. We'll see if any of these Nintendo games actually take home any prizes. We'll see. Maybe they'll give some out between commercial breaks. Who knows?
And I will say, there was one major snub that I brought up in SideQuest, and I'm going to bring up here. There was one major snub, specifically in the sports game category. Windjammers 2 1000% deserves to be nominated in the sports, especially if you're going to have Ali Ali World nominated for a game award in the sports category. Windjammers 2 1000% deserve to be nominated in that. If you weren't going to put it there, it should have replaced Sifu in best fighting game.
You mean to tell me Sifu's not a fighting game?
Sifu is there by the Game Awards' own admission, by the Game Awards' own description. The fighting game category is based off of games that are head-to-head, PvP, not PvNPC. Sifu literally doesn't even qualify based on the Game Awards' own description of its own category.
Yeah. Well, that was a snub for sure. Yeah, I know. Let's move on before Eric has an aneurysm. over over Sifu. But I get it. I get it. It is a little bit ridiculous. But that is happening December 8th.
Love you,
and look,
Dotemu. Love you, Windjammers too.
yeah, yeah. So we'll be watching that with bated breath. See if there's any exciting announcements. See what wins. See what happens, man. But speaking of stuff happening in December, we do have an exciting content drop coming December 1st for Splatoon 3, hot off the heels of the Splatfest. We have been kind of waiting to see what is going to happen with Splatoon 3 content. We've been kind of starved over here a little bit. And sure enough, Splatoon 3, again on December 1st, is kicking off the chill season of content with new maps, new modes, and a whole new suite of weapons and customization items, and hopefully a whole new reason to jump back into the game.
I'm such an idiot. I just got that. December, Christmas, chill.
Yeah, chill season. Yeah.
I'm such a dork.
Yeah. So chill season, December 1st. So the new maps, you got a brand new map called Brinewater Springs. Kind of looks like this, like, kind of cabin lodge hot springs. It looks kind of cozy. I dig it.
I dig it too.
and then you got Flounder Heights, which is a returning stage from the first Splatoon.
Yep.
So got that to look forward to. We've got new modes. X battles are finally
the X
getting worked in.
battles. Finally,
So
yes, we heard about those before the release of the game. We knew, like, they told us about the roadmap of free updates and new content coming to the game, and we're just incredibly impatient. It all seems so fun and so great that we want it right meow. We're still gonna have to wait a couple years for all the content to drop, but it is nice that we have things to keep us salivating for new stuff over there. And I'm really excited for the X battles.
Me too. Yeah, it's cool for people who are really like hardcore into the rank stuff. So
yeah.
What I'm really excited for is Big Run. Big Run is finally imminent, according to the trailer. So Big Run, for those who don't know, is Salmon Run, but on the multiplayer maps. The Salmonids are going to invade the proper multiplayer maps instead of just the standard Salmon Run maps that we've been playing on since the game's launch. So that is going to be really cool. I'm interested to see how that changes things. Interested to see if they're going to work in new boss characters. So yeah, that's probably the number one thing I'm excited about here is Big Run, because Salmon Run's my favorite mode in the game.
Join me, Seth. Join me.
Yes.
We will take down the Salmonids. I'm super excited for Big Run too. They've also got new weapons.
Yep. All kinds of new weapons.
A new roller, this new pencil-shaped sniper rifle that holds 5 charges, which on the offset seems super broken, but it looks like it's going to take at least 2 shots to splat somebody, which I don't know. Also, you got to look at the range, but the fact that it's got a 5-charge, the fact you've got a 5-charge sniper rifle automatically makes it really, really tantalizing for me.
Yeah. Well, so I don't really use the chargers too much personally, but I'm still excited to see not only that, but I mean, it also introduces, because it's a new sort of season of content, you get a whole new catalog of unlocks and customization things for your locker and, all kinds of stuff and titles. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It has, admittedly, Splatoon has felt a little bit stale for me. Like, I went through the single player, did all that, played a bunch of the multiplayer, felt some connectivity issues and stuff, which have been getting ironed out kind of slowly. And then now it's just I jump in there every now and then to play some Salmon Run. So it is nice to have a new carrot on the stick for Splatoon.
Yeah.
So very cool. Looking forward to playing that.
Very much looking forward to playing that. Very much looking forward to covering all of these free content updates and free content drops throughout the lifespan of Splatoon 3. But speaking of free content drops and free updates for games that we really enjoy, we got a new direct presentation from Capcom in regards to the 3rd free content update drop thing for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. We've got updates on new monsters, new anomaly quests, new event quests, new stuff. But Seth,
I know
those plushy weapons.
I know. Gonna have to pony up for those. Got to pay for those.
Yeah, it's paid DLC. That's already bought. They have given us so much extra free content, and admittedly, there's a ton of nickel and diming that they do with the extra content for Monster Hunter Rise. I mean, you don't need to buy all of it, obviously.
It's all aesthetic. It's 1000% aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah. So Monster Hunter Rise has never been a game where I felt like I needed to buy all of the 99-cent DLC in order to get the full experience. But I desperately need these plushy weapons. Like, these are instantly became my favorite in the game.
Yeah, it's so they're basically new layered weapons that look like plushy, like kind of plush toys of the monsters and stuff, and it's very, very cute.
It's so great. The hammer is a Garangolm. I think the longsword is a Tigrex or a Rathalos that's breathing fire, and the actual fire jet is the blade, and the Zinogre is the sword and shield, and it's just so adorable. Like, we've got new monsters and new stuff coming in, but that was the one that made my eyes go.
Yeah.
I need, like, those are already bought. I cannot wait for those. But I guess we should talk about the other stuff that's coming to the game as well. A couple risen monsters, a couple new forms for some monsters that are already there. Apparently the Curio have not been able to take control of every monster within the Elgato region. A couple of the Elder Dragons, a couple of the higher level monsters have risen above that, and now you're going to be able to fight, who is it, risen...
Teostra and Kushala Diora.
Yep. A couple Elder Dragons they added to the base game, to Monster Hunter Rise, with free updates. And now here in Sunbreak, we are getting the risen versions of those two Elder Dragons.
Yep. So that's cool. And always nice to have a new challenge, a new kind of version of those monsters. And then we also have got the chaotic Gormagala to look forward to.
That thing's going to be nuts.
Yeah, that looks intense. So,
outside of the new monsters, I do kind of wish they would. The new versions of the older monsters are cool, and I'm glad we've got those. I'm glad we got the updated anomaly quests. But I do wish they would bring in a couple more actual new monsters. I do wish we'd get just a couple more, because we're only going to have, I think, another one or two of these updates. They did show the roadmap. They did show the rest of the roadmap for the free updates for Sunbreak in this presentation as well. And we've got a couple more dropping at the beginning of 2023 that we're also super excited for. But it would be nice to see a couple other new actual monsters. I like the Gold Rathalos, or the Silver Rathalos and the Gold Rathian. And I like these new versions of these old monsters. But let's bring just one or two more back into the fold before they completely close the book on the content for this game. But something I want to make sure doesn't get understated. I'm super excited for the plushie weapons. However, I am very excited with how much they are expanding the follower quests.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, so the follower quest they added in Sunbreak, which is essentially, if you're playing single player, you can still go out with basically a full party. You don't necessarily need to get all of your friends online. You can take the NPCs from the world of Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak and go out on quests with them. Including Fio, who is just the best, Elder Fugan, the twins, a bunch of different characters in the game that you can go out on quests with while playing single player. It was a fantastic addition to Sunbreak, albeit a little narrow in terms of its scope. And with this new content update, they are vastly expanding the scope of those follower missions. So if you are somebody who plays a lot of this game single player, then you are going to have access to those followers. You're going to have access to more NPCs and bigger parties in a much more expanded suite of missions moving forward. That makes me very happy.
Yeah, it's cool. The follow requests were great. It was a great addition, great way to sort of get to know the characters as well, and great for people who do tend to play in single player. So cool to see that. Kind of upgraded, and that title update 3 is going to hit next week on the 24th. So look forward to that. I imagine we're actually here in the States going to get it the night previous.
The night before, as is tradition.
As is tradition, because these are aired in Japan, so typically we wind up getting them around, like 8 p.m. the night before or something like that.
Yeah.
So
9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, that's when we typically get them. So, just like the Nintendo Switch Online drops.
Yep. So look forward to that. And actually, we did get some new icons. Huge
We
news
did.
story. Some new icons for
Br-
Pokemon.
Breaking news.
Breaking
Nintendo
news.
is trying to push Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We did get a couple really, admittedly, really adorable little key art icons for the 3 starters from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet: Sprigatito, Fuecoco, and Quaxley. You can get those if you are Nintendo Switch Online subscribers. You can get the adorable little avatar icons for the 3 new starters from Pokemon Gen 9 right meow. I'm actually Fuecoco right now.
All in out of context. I'm actually Fuecoco right now.
I am actually Fuecoco right now.
I am
They've got some
actually...
really cool. They've got some really cool like white and gold backgrounds and Pokeball themed frames and stuff. So I'm gold Fuecoco.
There you go. A shiny Fuecoco even.
Mm.
But speaking
Wouldn't that be
of
lovely?
yeah, right. But speaking of shiny and pretty and things that have me very excited, Eric, we got a trailer earlier this week. Y'all know I do love the Lego Super Mario stuff. I have been very, very, very disciplined when it comes to Lego Super Mario. I buy the character packs. So like I've bought, Luigi and Peach and Mario and stuff. And like I have the character packs and I have gotten a few of the blind bags, but I've been pretty good overall. I think I've I haven't bought all these expansions and things like that. I haven't gotten sunk into the hole. But they showed this new kind of wave, and we typically get 2 waves per year of the Lego Super Mario. On January 1st,
This isn't a wave; it's a tsunami.
this is pretty much in line with what we get. It's a bunch of new expansion sets and character packs. But here's where they get me with this. Is y'all know I'm somebody who loves Mario enemies, and I spend a lot of time thinking about Mario enemies. I do an entire YouTube series about Mario enemies called Behind Enemy Lines here on the YouTube channel. And I love Mario enemies, and they're starting to work in some really cool ones in interesting ways in the Lego Super Mario set. So specifically, we are getting a winter-themed expansion set, which looks really cute. Has all those penguins that people love and you see in the movie and stuff, the movie trailer. We got a beach-themed expansion coming that has Conch-Door, which I'm like, I need that. I'm getting that. Conch-Door, for those who don't know, is that sort of big, like, it's kind of like one of those water-feeding birds. When you go under it, it kind of just slams its head down. And it works exactly the same in the Lego form, and I'm like, I need that. That's actually only going to be $15. Not bad. Not a bad price. And then we've got this lava-themed expansion, which has a Sumo Bro, and I love the Sumo Bros as well. So I'm like, man, y'all are starting to... You got me. You got me.
There's a lot of stuff. That was a fairly expansive trailer. Everybody listening to this right now needs to become patrons right now, or else Seth is going to go broke.
Yeah, so
we
can afford these Lego Mario. Man.
Yeah. For the next couple
cow.
months, the patrons are essentially Seth's Lego fund. Yeah. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Of
obviously.
course. But it is. But there's a lot of cool stuff, and I'm always happy when we get some new Lego Super Mario stuff. And again, I'm usually pretty good. But this one felt like they were like coming for me. If they start like really kind of rolling out these cool Mario enemy expansions, then it's going to start getting a little dangerous. I've been good so far, but then it's going to start getting a little dangerous.
Seth was able to hold himself back from the Mega Bowser set.
Oh yeah. That it's like, that's too expensive. That's a little bit of a bridge too far. I don't even really have room for it. So I resisted that. Conch-Door. I gotta have that Conch-Door.
But that Conch-Door, though.
I'm just it's gonna sit here. That's gonna be my, you go into an office sometimes and like the CEO has a little like water bird on his desk. That'll be my version of that, is Lego Conch-Door here on my desk. I'm excited. January 1st, ring in the new year, right after Christmas, and spend all your money on Lego Super Mario.
January 1st, expect an unboxing video.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I probably will do that. Yeah, but anyway, that's in the new year. We've got some notable releases to hit for games that are out now.
Are you sure? We've got some notable releases from this past week, Seth?
I think so.
You know what? Obviously, the big one is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Came out, as we're recording this, came out a few hours ago. One of the biggest releases of the year. We've already given you a little bit of our, let's just say, unfiltered initial impressions of the game. Stay tuned for our full review coming up in the following weeks. But yes, it's one of the biggest releases of the year. It's Pokemon Gen 9. It's the most profitable IP in the history of ever. It's Pokemon. It released this week. You all know this, but you might not know that inexplicably a couple other games that might be worth your time somehow, for some reason, decided to also release this same day. So the first one that I want to shout out in that regard is a follow-up to a game that we recently did an indie showcase on, a very acclaimed RPG Maker style game that was just narratively fantastic. It's called To the Moon.
Yes.
And you've maybe heard about it. Again, it's a very famous indie game. Its follow-up, Finding Paradise, dropped on the Nintendo Switch earlier today as well. And if you liked To the Moon, or if you were interested in it at all, this is definitely a game that eventually, at some point, needs to be on your radar.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this one. This is one I'm gonna need to pick up because To the Moon is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
To the Moon is really good. But ironically enough, that wasn't the only game that we thought was a notable release from this week that also released today in conjunction with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I thought this was a remake or a remaster or something. I'm actually not 100% sure what's going on, but a new Oddworld game starring Abe himself released today on the Nintendo Switch as well. Oddworld Soulstorm.
Yeah, it's a new game, but it's this has actually been out for some time on other platforms, finally coming to the Nintendo Switch, and I think it's in line with like the old like Oddworld Abe's Odyssey and stuff like
Abe's
that.
Odyssey, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
those bizarre, weird, surreal games from the mid 90s, stuff like Skull Monkeys and but this somehow the Oddworld series has endured. It's been on life support arguably for the longest time, but they're still making games in it. Oddworld Stranger's Wrath. A lot of people don't know this is also on the Nintendo Switch.
It is indeed. It's a good game. I like that game.
It is a good game. It's a really good game. Speaking of classic style games, though, another very interesting release this past week on the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch finally has its own version. The game library on the Nintendo Switch is officially complete now, Seth.
Finally
we can put
done.
a wrap on it.
Yep.
It's done. We can close the book on it. The Nintendo Switch finally has its own version of the Oregon Trail.
Finally, we can let the sun set on a grateful eShop. We finally have the Oregon Trail on Switch.
Gameloft's updated version of the classic edutainment title that we've also recently talked about in our top 5 games top 5 best games to educate with. But yeah, Oregon Trail from Gameloft, that I very nearly bought it. And then I saw that it was $30.
Ooh, yeah, no, 30, no, can't do that.
Yeah.
Too rich for my blood.
If it was like 20 or like 15 would have been.
I would have thought it was 10
easy,
or 15.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. That's surprising.
But it's a fairly optimized, fairly bells and whistles type version of the game. It's not just the old, it's not just the old DOS version. And it's not just a port of the 3DSware version of the game either. It's a Switch optimized, fairly new version of the classic Oregon Trail that all of us played on those 2 kilobytes of RAM personal computers back in the late 80s.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, look, it's exciting to have the Oregon Trail on modern hardware in any form. So there you go.
It is kind of exciting. Overpriced, but still kind of exciting.
Yeah, and we have a couple games from Indie World that came out this week. Already talked about Goodbye World a little bit. Again, that video is on the YouTube channel if you want to check that out and get a feel for that game. And then Wobble Dogs came out this week, which didn't really do much for you or I.
No, yeah, I'm actively meh on Wobble Dogs, but it was featured recently at that indie showcase. So if you liked what you saw during that, then check out the game. It's available. I didn't even realize it was coming out this soon. That's how that's how strongly it struck me during that presentation. But if you liked it, I love it for you. It's out now. Have fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the notable releases.
Oh, is that it?
That's it. That's it. That's all we got.
Nice. Well, if there's anything that have come out in this past week, if you are the world's biggest Wobble Dogs fan, let us know. If you're super excited to play the game, let us know. Reach out to us on our social media. I hope Twitter is still around in the following week, but at the very least, you can reach us at a couple other places. We might have to look into Mastodon. We will see. But at the very least, Facebook, and definitely make sure, especially if Twitter does go downhill, definitely make sure to join our Discord community. If the rest of the world burns, that will be the best way to contact us. Even more reason to join the Discord. Make sure to follow us on YouTube. Thank you for everybody who's hanging out with us tonight, watching live here at youtube.com/allinpodcast. Make sure to check out the podcast itself, wherever you get your podcasts from. And definitely make sure to check out our Patreon.
Yes, patreon.com/allinpodcast. We got 3 tiers there. We got all kinds of stuff always going on, exclusive content. So definitely throw a couple bones our way if you feel so inclined. But if you don't have any bones to throw, you can, of course, just drop some words. Over on Apple Podcasts, on Podchaser, and on Audible, you can leave us 5-star written reviews that are very, very appreciated. And on Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star rating. And we very, very much appreciate that. Gets our show in front of the people that need to hear it. So thank you so much for those reviews.
Yes, and over the past 2.5 years, we've had so many amazing people interact with us and consume our content in so many different ways. And to all of those who have consumed our content, to all of those who continue to consume our content and support what we do in any way, shape, or form, we just want to say namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, guys. That was it. That's the news. Done.
Dunskies.
Dunsky. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We really appreciate it. Again, I said this kind of at the top, but it bears repeating. This is but a taste of the full episode going live tomorrow. We have got the top 5 Wii U hidden gems as we kind of close out the Wii U and head into the closure of these eShops. We have got a indie showcase on Typo Man, which is going to be fun. And then we've got a really fun chat with community member Matt Shy Guy City Murray about his exciting project, Critical Diversions, as well as a look back on Miiverse. So a lot of great stuff. This was but a taste of it. Definitely make sure you tune into the full episode, hitting all those podcast feeds tomorrow. So huge shout outs to anybody who's watching us live. Shout outs to Locklith. Thank you for tuning in, Locklith. We appreciate you stopping by. And if you're still here, give us a like and a subscribe. Why don't you?
Yeah.
Over here on YouTube.
Why
we appreciate
don't
it.
you have no reason not to.
Yeah, it's free.
Whatever excuse you're trying to drum up in your head right now, stop it. That's a bad excuse.
Stop it. Get some help. We appreciate it, guys. And we will see you all next week. Tune into the podcast tomorrow. Links are always
Thanksgiving
in the description. Yeah, have a happy Thanksgiving. We love you very much. Bye.
Have a good one.